This is Morten from Inkish. I have the pleasure tonight. It's actually a little bit late here, so I have the pleasure of talking to Mark Dempsey from HP. So, Mark, welcome to Inkish.
Thanks, Morten. Good evening.
Good evening. And we have tried to see if we could get this call set up actually over the past week at least, but you were in the US last week. What did you do in the US?
So spending time with the sales team, visiting customers and prospects. We're certainly expanding the business there at the moment, and it's a great opportunity to see people from a different culture, working in different markets. I'm based in the UK, of course, so I'm very familiar with the EMEA region. And in the last 12 months, I've been spending a lot of time in the Americas, which has been great. So really seeing, our current install base, and also a lot of new prospects that are really keen on investigating the technology.
For those who don't know you, I mean, you have been with HP in a couple of rounds, and you've also been with Atlanta, just to disclose that for a second. But just for what you do now, we got to talk to each other at ICE in Munich 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. And we spoke about that the corrugated business also for HP seems to be maybe underplayed but very important market for you. So what is it you do in that market, you as person, but also HP?
Yeah, so I mean, if I can just backstep a little. So HP play in all of the major packaging segments, so labels, flexible packaging, folding cartons, and corrugated. I've worked in all of those businesses for HP, and they're all growth businesses for our industrial business unit. Today, I'm responsible for HP page-wide post-print corrugated presses, which is effectively the C550. So I'm responsible for the go-to-market, so effectively the sales organization. We primarily operate in EMEA and North America. I took a decision a while back just to back off on Asia Pacific for the time being, because we wanted to give it some focus. So my job really is to make sure that I bring the revenue in, I guess, Morten.
That is always interesting, because I was just thinking that if you look at always when I talk to people that are, let's say, involved with digital print, in particular inkjet, it's always for me like let's say a particular area where the adoption rate is so different from segment to segment. I mean, if you go back to like ceramics, I think they were maybe the first that actually adapted to digital. I think that label is way beyond packaging, and commercial print, obviously with the Indigo and the page wide, is well adopting into this. But is it true, or is it just me? Is it true that adoption of digital when it comes to both corrugated and to folding carton has gone a little bit slower than most expected?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that digital in fiber-based packaging has been much slower. What I would say is that corrugated is picking up quite quickly now, whereas folding cartons has been much slower. I think within folding cartons, what we see is a very efficient competitor in offset printing in analog. I don't think those efficiencies are necessarily there in flexo. So there is a value proposition for inkjet digital printing within the corrugated segment. So effectively, when we do the business case analysis, we see a much bigger break-even point in corrugated than we do in folding cartons. So there's a strong value proposition for us here.
Because I understand what you talk about, that the corrugators maybe see digital as a very viable solution compared to flexo, as you say, the transformation from, let's say, one technology to another. But I was wondering, because I think I remember, I don't think it was anybody from HP, but I think I once heard that in general the corrugated business seems as a quite conservative business. So when HP comes as a, let's say, a fresh breath with new technology, is it easy to get, let's say, time with the converters?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that they're all very interested. That's not to say that they all want to push the button right now. But we've been through quite some events over the last 5 or 6 years. Whether it's the pandemic. Immediately after the pandemic, we went into lots of supply chain issues. Following on from that, we took a downward turn in the economy. This is all driving different behaviours with the brands and retailers, which in turn is putting pressure on the converters. So the converters are having to approach things in a different way because their customers are asking them to do it. More recently, we saw as a result of the supply chain challenges, a lot of the brands have overstocked. That stocking has now started to clear, but they still feel that pain of carrying all of the burden of that additional cash flow. They don't want to do that again. So they're now saying to the converters, we want what we want and when we need it. We don't want to overstock and fill warehouses full of additional packaged items anymore. Things change, trends change, behaviors change, and we're starting to see some of that come through. It's true to say that we're seeing a bigger interest from independent converters because they feel that they need to differentiate themselves against the global players. But even the global players, whilst they take time to take a decision, they're often working to capex, processes. They're also starting to see that there's a move towards agile printing, let's call it. The e-commerce market is a great example. By 2026, e-commerce will be worth $8 trillion. We see that $65 billion of that will be packaging. Whether that's flexible packaging, folding cartons, but corrugated will be a big part of that. And that corrugated has to form part of the marketing mix. So it has to perform in a different way. It's not a dumb device anymore. It has to communicate. And digital printing allows you to do that.
I was just about to say that because, when I look at HP, to me it seems like, because when you mention corrugated, flexible labels, corrugated, basically all the, let's say, the packaging segments that you just mentioned, I can't recall, but isn't HP the only supplier that basically have technologies for almost every segment in the packaging area as well?
You've caught me on that. I hadn't thought about it.
No, I hadn't until you mentioned it yourself, and I was just like, because you have competition in corrugated, you have competition in label, but I don't think that you can find anybody who is capable of delivering in all segments. But you are.
There aren't many. I can't think of anybody else. And
so when you have that,
certainly with a strong offering in each of those segments, I would say, yeah.
So just thinking that when you have that unique, let's say, position in the market, is there a lot of, let's say, technology crossover? So you can basically, like you mentioned yourself that we're going to talk about the C550 in a second, but when you look at the inkjet technologies that obviously HP is a master of, right? I was just thinking, is there a lot of technology, let's say, spin off that you can take from one segment to the next one and then learn and get better at it? Or is it really siloed in different, let's say, way of production?
No, far from it. There are a lot of common practices, and you mentioned the word technology, but let me take you down a different route. The way that we communicate with our customers, the way that we build markets together in partnership with the customers. We do an awful lot of sales training, regardless of whether that's indigo or inkjet technologies. So there are a lot of common practices, mainly in the way we go to market and partner with our clients. Indigo is LEP, technology, which is a toner technology, a liquid toner, and achieves very, very high quality. We are the market leaders in digital labels, for instance. In terms of the C550 that we'll talk about, it is a water-based inkjet technology. So we do have a lot of common practices, but elsewhere within the organisation. You mentioned, our pedigree in thermal inkjet printing. We've got more than 35 years of inkjet printing experience. Your desktop printer at home may be a HP.
It is actually 8250.
Right. So we draw a lot of experience and know-how from that side of the business. And it's allowed us to accelerate into water-based inkjet technology, which is where we believe we need to be for the corrugated box market in the years to come.
With the adoption rate, because you didn't really, I mean, in a way you answered me, but when I said that I hear that the corrugators maybe to some extent is a little bit conservative, it was actually not negatively meant, because when I have been visiting some of the really big ones like Schumacher, some like, just to mention one, for example, right? Then I see that the investments that they have done in both the corrugators and the flexo presses and, let's say, the finishing technology, it is vast investments, because it is gigantic operations. So of course you have to be sure that you invest in, let's say, the right technologies. And you mentioned that you develop technology together with your customers, which is obvious and interesting thing to do. But you also partner with, for example, I think is it the HPT 1195 that is together with Koenig and Bauer, or is that is that true? Or I can't remember.
So that's not really my area of the business, Morten.
No, but just to put it in perspective, that you also partner with other companies in the industry to basically cover as much as possible.
So my colleagues in the preprint team, do partner with Koenig and Bauer and other partners as well. Back to postprint, which is where I sit. We partner with workflow partners, for instance. Our stacker is a Serra stacker, so we partner with Serra. And there'll be some other partners, throughout the build of the press. Our expertise really is in the inkjet printing unit. We don't have to reinvent the wheel and think about, building a stacker, because there are companies out there that know how to do it much better than we do.
That have done that for 35 years, right? Or more sometimes, right? Yeah. Today, actually, it's tomorrow. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, as you said. I forgot about those things, so I have to send some flowers to my wife. But yeah. But Valentine's Day is also something a little bit special for HB, because you have I don't know if it's a revolution, but at least you have an iteration and a 1-year birthday, namely the PageWhite C550, which is I was very honored to be with one of your customers, Sutherland, just a month's time ago to see it in action. Huge machine.
Yeah,
right?
Big machine. Yeah, industrial printing press. Looks and feels like a flexo press in terms of size and shape. Yeah, robust.
And a press that I was just about to be a little stupid saying that it's impressive, but it is impressive, the press, because basically you have, as you say, an industrial scale manufacturing device where you basically load pallets of corrugated sheets, basically, right? And then is it 90 meters per minute you produce in 4 color of high quality print, and basically you just see it just prints and prints and prints. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you today is because I think that is a brilliant example of how the technology that HP has developed over the years is now starting to see, let's say, applications and let's say business opportunities, because you have the quality, you have the speed. It seems to be something that can replace any, let's say, legacy technology in the companies, especially when we saw the ones that from Sutherland. So how has the market been? Because you had the C500 now, and now you have the C550. How has the market been for you introducing these type of machines?
Yeah, so I mean, if I can just go back a few years, when we first built the C500, we took a decision that we wanted it to be water-based. Water-based inkjet printing at industrial speeds is not easy. To give you an idea, we drop over 1 billion droplets of ink every minute. So it's a hugely complex device. You're also putting water-based ink down on what is probably the most unstable of substrates in corrugated board. And then you've got to put it through a hot air dryer to dry the ink, so this stuff isn't easy to do. The C500 was our first generation press, and we were pretty successful. We made some mistakes along the way, but we quickly fixed those and we improved. You mentioned February the 14th, Valentine's Day. We launched the second generation press, as you touched on, the C550, which is really an evolvement of where we've come from, but really kind of address a lot of the things that our customers were asking us for. So, much more efficient, so not only a faster press because we moved from 75 to 90 meters a minute, but efficiency was gained because we looked at the sequencing of events. So we made it much more intuitive for the operators to use on a day-to-day basis, much easier to maintain, much slicker in terms of software. And that adds to production. And when you're in the industrial scale, this can be huge. So yes, I mean, you mentioned your visit to New Jersey. I hope you had a bagel when you were there. These guys are famous for them.
I did.
But Sutherland Packaging were our first clients to take the C550, and they, I think we completed the installation in April of 2023. And these guys are super dynamic. They're they have a mix of point of sale and also corrugated boxes, but it's the way that they blend the two together. If anyone's seen any of the content online, they're really dynamic in the way that they market. It's a really exciting partner to be working with, and we've got others as well.
I would say that of course you're right in what you're saying, but I was actually, to be honest, I was a little bit more impressed by something different, because if you look at Sutherland, Jake Sutherland that we spoke to is now the third generation, and the company basically moved from being a brown box manufacturer doing simple, I was just about to say that potato print on boxes or simple designs, one color, two color, and even though that they have multiple color flexo presses, I don't think they utilized it. It was like Chinese machines. They were fast, they were big, but the quality was less compared to, of course, a new flexo machine, but also compared to the C550. So I think that this is a brilliant example, and also how you can move your business from, let's say, one, value proposition product to a much more valuable product that in the long term might change Sutherland completely, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jake himself is a businessman. He's come from outside of the.
He's a banker.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he came from Wall Street, so he's come in with a lot of new ideas. He's the second generation, within the Sutherland business.
I thought it was third.
Yeah,
okay.
well, you might be right. He might be third. It might be my error. But again, he recognises that the world is changing and the market's changing, and he's applying some of his business experience to that packaging business. When you talk about brown box versus high graphic packaging, high graphics has always been the much smaller piece of the pie, but it's growing rapidly. I talk to a lot of brown box global businesses who are trying to move their model much more to a high graphics, business. So again, these trends will continue for sure. There'll always be a massive, brown box business, and there'll always be specialist companies that do that. But increasingly, when you receive your box at home, you're much more likely to be engaged in the brand if the box is talking to you rather than. I mean, because one of the challenges, of course, with brown boxes is when they arrive at your home, they're often full of space, and then you've got to get rid of the brown box. And if you're anything like my wife, she has lots of deliveries a day, and I'm the one that has to go to the refuge site to get rid of them. So brown boxes don't make me happy either.
A last topic I would like, because we both have to do other things than talking to each other, even though it's very nice talking to you, Mark. In Europe, at least, I don't know for America, but it seems that there is also a growing requirement from legislation that you have traceability on your packaging, which will then, that will probably also push a lot in your direction, because that will require some kind of, let's say, personalization on a box, either with, let's say, an added one color option on a brown box or any other packaging. But maybe that also opens up for new and more exciting packaging using the multiple color opportunities. How much is the legislation playing a role in your mind when it comes to, let's say, the converters looking at digital?
Well, in truth, Morten, it's nothing that that the converters have actually come to us with right now. There's always been ways of printing variably, coding, printing barcodes, even on analog presses. And in fact, we have a business unit within HP called the Specialist Printing Services Unit that offers some devices for that application. But you're right. If you look at certain markets, they've been doing this for a long time. Pharmaceuticals, for instance. But what we now have is the ability to make it much more interesting. So, instead of using, codes and QR codes and things like that for tracing, we can now start to use smart applications. So, whether that's, watermarks or glyphs or things like that to really add value into the supply chain. I think it's still very early days on that from a corrugated perspective, for sure. We see a lot more advancements in that in labels, for sure. We've been doing that for some years in labels.
So interesting, everything you spoke about. And I just want to end this episode by actually congratulating you on the C550 1 year's anniversary. How often do you, I don't know if there's like a rule for it, but how long time does it normally take before you have a new iteration? I mean, typically when you look at, for example, the Indigos, you have started to realize, okay, there is some kind of life cycle to when the next iteration and then the revolution comes. Are you already in development of the next iteration, or is that too early to start on that?
So, if you ask my boss, he'll say, Mark, sell what you've got. Right. So,
I mean, you should.
Yeah, we should. So, because obviously what we sell obviously funds, R&D for the future. We've always got R&D projects, working behind the scenes. Those R&D budgets are working on the current press, so, whenever we put a press into the market.
Okay. So still improving existing hardware and software to make sure that it's always upgraded and updated to the latest technology available.
And we've got two or three really important projects that we're working on at the moment that I can't disclose, but that we're hoping to bring to market towards the end of this year that are really going to add some value into the ROI for the customer. Then, of course, you start to look at, is there a C560, for instance, in the future? Or do you decide to add other products into the portfolio? So in terms of product positioning, do you have something above the C550 or below the C550? There's lots of considerations, that we're constantly evolving. Again, like anything in life, it's, you've spoken a lot about adoption rates tonight, and the adoption rate is really increasing right now. But it's not as fast as we would have liked, so we're hoping that adoption rate will increase over the next 1 to 2 years for sure. And if it does, we can bring some really exciting technologies to market because we got the people to do it. It's our core asset, that thermal inkjet water-based ink system, has now been proven with the C500 and now the C550. And in theory, we can roll that out into any platform, moving forwards.
One thing I forgot to mention, because I think that has an interest to our viewers, and that is, of course, that the size of the machine also allows you to print boards up to 205 centimeters. So I'm just saying that because I think that when you have the size of a sheet like that, it also opens up for bigger types of packages than just having, let's say, a 40-inch or 41-inch, basically, because the way that you can tilt or turn the corrugated basically allows you to print really huge sizes as well, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a 1.4 by 2.5 meter format, basically, just short of 1.4.
Oh, 2.5. Okay, I thought it was 205.
2.5.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And you're right. You can print big boxes, so things like television boxes, for instance. But where it really becomes interesting is, and with all forms of packaging in position, is that, if you can get more components onto a bigger sheet, it makes things more efficient for you, more economically efficient.
Sure.
And by having a bigger sheet potential, it allows you to hit some of those really competitive numbers. Yeah.
Fantastic, Mark. I have to go and get myself some supper. You have some hungry kids that need something to eat.
I do. I also need to order some flowers for tomorrow for my wife. So that will be the next thing. And you should do as well, Morten.
Fantastic. I'm in Aachen right now, as I told you. So I will definitely go to the shop now and send some flowers to my wife. And there's one thing that I'm certain about: she doesn't listen to English at all, so she will not. She will be surprised.
Well, listen, thank you very much. It's been great to talk to you tonight.
Likewise, Mark.
Thanks,
all the best.
Morten.
Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.